Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's get right to what America is talking about. The takeover show hits Washington, D.C. And in tonight's episode, hundreds of National Guard members from all over the country are now stationed all across the city. Troops are watching neighborhoods and military vehicles are patrolling the streets. And today's episode also featured an all-star cast. J.D. Vance, the vice president, Stephen Miller, a top White House aide, and Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense secretary. They were met with a not so warm welcome by D.C. residents at Union Station.
I heard you, buddy.
The chorus of protesters briefly drowned out their media moment, but they didn't seem fazed by it. They posed for pictures and took the troops out for burgers and had this to say about their fellow Americans.
I think you hear these guys outside here screaming at us. Of course, these are a bunch of crazy protesters.
So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old.
Now, today's visit illustrates a stark divide between the Trump administration and D.C. residents. As city crime stats show that violence is declining, Trump has said that those numbers are fake. And new polling also now shows roughly 8 in 10 oppose Trump's takeover. But Vance, like his boss, is not believing that data either.
I'm highly skeptical that a majority of D.C. residents don't want their city to have better public safety and more reasonable safety standards within Washington, D.C.
So now it doesn't matter, Scott Jennings, that voters are not happy with what Trump's doing, don't feel safer, all of that.
I don't care what they think. I mean, these are the same people who elected the mayor and city council that ran the city's public safety into the ground in the first place.
You don't care what the residents...
They don't know what's good for them.
You don't care what the residents of D.C. think.
I do not. I do not care one bit, and I'll tell you something else.
I feel like I do remember just a couple of weeks ago you were saying, well, secretly D.C. residents really want this because they know the crime is so bad.
I don't
now
know what
we
they
actually
want.
have the numbers that say, will Trump's federal takeover reduce violent crime? 65% say no, just 20% say yes. Do you feel like the president's of federal officers makes you feel safer, more safe, 18%, less safe, 61%?
Why would they say that? They're out arresting criminals. They're arresting illegal aliens. They're getting illegal guns off the streets. An MS-13 illegal alien was taken out off the streets the other night. They're obviously safer. But, you know, there's another population that cares about public safety in D.C. It's all the people who visit there. We have people that go there, millions of people from all over the country. They deserve to go to a national capital that's not in disgrace and despair, and that's what they're doing in Washington. So I don't really care about what they think, truthfully.
Let me let Valencia, because she actually lives in D.C. Well, in the D.C. area. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, listen, I live in the DMV area. I am from the area, and listen, you can talk about the numbers that you all have reported on, that crime has come down over the years. And yes, there are people who have felt individual instances. But the bigger issue that a lot of folks are talking about in D.C. is this over-policing of black communities, black and brown communities. And we're seeing this as part of a bigger picture of what the Trump administration is doing across the country. And so it's actually not making people feel safer. There are a lot of people who are staying home. The restaurants are feeling it, and people are really concerned. And so I actually disagree with the statement that people don't know what they need when the city has actually come together and started voting people in office to help bring crime down.
Let's talk about legally. So the Home Rule Act of 1973 gave the president the authority to have rule over the National Guard in D.C. There's also a section in there, Section 740, that allowed him and gave him authority over the police department in D.C. if he declares an emergency. He, in fact, on August 11th, declared an emergency. So legally, he has the ability to do this. So how do we address, everybody wants to be safer and feel safer. How do we address that point, but also address the point that you brought up where certain people are being targeted? I think this is a situation where we have to hope that the people that are deployed there understand that it's on them to make sure that they police fairly, that they treat people fairly, because the general at the top may have an idea of why he wants people to be there, but we have to, in an effort to bring crime down, say these National Guards that are legally deployed there treat people fairly. You're supposed to be there as a deterrent. You shouldn't be making arrests. They don't really have the authority to do that. They don't have the authority to police the streets. That's not what the National Guard does. So stay hands off, act as a deterrent, If the numbers come down, that's better for everybody. If the streets are safer, but do it in a manner that you're not targeting people.
I got to jump in on this, though. I've got 30 years of military service. A lot of that was in the National Guard. I have been activated for civil disturbance before. And the training that the Guard guys get is designed to actually put them on the streets with minimum show of force, use of force. They know what to do and how to do, and they are fully supervised in what they do. And I feel very confident that the people they're targeting are not of a certain demographic. They're not of a certain skin color. What they're targeting is criminals.
No,
that's exactly what they are there right now to provide a
videos.
deterrent.
I know the neighborhoods.
And the police
They are.
force is absolutely in favor of this. The police union is ecstatic over this. And if you look at it, Mayor Bowser herself is really not resisting this. In fact, I think she welcomes it.
But I think, let me ask you a question, because you mentioned your National Guard service. I mean, what you're talking about is a civil disturbance. I think what Trump is suggesting that the National Guard is doing is policing. Those are not the same thing as far as what you just described.
Certainly
you seem to say, well, you seem to say that they have a hands-off approach. That's different from what policing looks like.
I didn't say hands-off. I said well-trained.
Well,
There's
no,
a
they're
difference.
not trained.
So what is-
They are
so what is-
absolutely,
what is the policing
they are
function
absolutely
then?
trained. In fact, every one of those guardsmen that got there, every one of them, no matter what state they came from, every one of them has a pre-deployment training they have to go through. I guarantee you.
Oh, to do what?
To get on the streets and to know exactly how to do crowd control, to know exactly how to do roadside stops, to know exactly how to do augmentation of services for the police force.
Yeah, but these are not.
provide that
But there's
order.
no. I mean, I
They're,
guess what
they're
I'm
not
saying
out
is that
there. They're not some hackneyed, jackbooted group out there running streets.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that. I'm just saying we've seen the National Guard being used when there are actual civil disturbances. In 2020, we've seen them at a lot of these moments when there have been mass uprisings or protests, and we've seen them in action there. What's happening in D.C. is that this is a normal city where people are going about their lives every day, and the National Guard troops what they're trying to do, have them do what police are supposed to do, which is to proactively police and patrol cities, which is different from what you're talking about.
It's not.
Here are the facts. When you ask the residents that Trump is claiming to help, they say that they oppose it at a 79% rate. 61% of them feel less safe. When you ask them what they care about the most, it's not homicides, it's not carjackings, it's Trump's occupation of D.C. So the question then becomes, who are we helping here? Who are we helping here? The idea that public policy isn't meant to serve the public in D.C. is absolutely absurd when Trump was claiming he was helping the public. So the question that I then want to ask is, why don't we mobilize the National Guard to the 8 out of 10 red states that are the highest homicide states? If this decreases crime, and that's sufficient enough to mobilize the National Guard against the explicit will of the people of D.C., why is the National Guard not marching through the streets?
The law, he was already quoted.
I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking about the explicit
we are talking about the law. But the other thing y'all are doing is misreading the poll. I read the poll. The poll said that 50% of the people who had been polled had seen the security. Of those 50%, 61% said they weren't sure they were happy with it. You boil that down, that means roughly 28% of the whole doesn't like it. 28%.
You asked, who is it for?
But I think that, the reason that they ask if you have seen it is because they want to ask people who have actually interacted with the issue, as opposed to just people who have no idea that it's happening. So that's one way to kind of get to that. But one thing, because what Adam just said was something that we asked here at the table yesterday. Why not address violence in all these other parts of the country?
Not enough Democrats.
Why, I'm not saying that President Trump should do it, but all these red state governors have the ability to mobilize their National Guards within their own states. Why aren't they doing it?
Right now, I don't think they feel the need to. But right
even
now,
though the
Home Rule
violence
Act,
levels are higher in some of those
states
cities
don't
than
have
they
a
are in
Home Rule
DC.
Act, but they do have a governor.
No, but they have a governor and they have a National Guard that's under the control of the government.
We're talking about D.C.
They
right
can
now.
deploy that at any
But their cities have more crime
you
than
not see
Washington,
the difference
D.C.
between our national capital